Right now at 6, bring in the state police.
We want to make it uncomfortable for people to be selling fentanyl.
The governor's new plan to crack down. Also ahead, tough choices coming.
You cut out one thing and there's downstream effects.
The ripple effects you could soon see on Portland's city streets. Then, strike averted.
Most unions need to strike for one of the items that we want.
What local nurses are now being offered without having to hit the picket line. And later,
I mean, who knows how long that car would have been there without us knowing about it.
the tech that helped police find a crash and potentially save a driver's life.
Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko, and we begin at 6 with the future of downtown Portland and a new strategy from Governor Tina Kotek to crack down when it comes to drug trafficking and fentanyl. The big headline, as you just heard, bringing in the Oregon State Police. Alma McCarty is live downtown with those new details from the governor. Alma.
Well, David, Governor Kotek stressed today that the biggest problem and the #1 priority for downtown Portland is fentanyl. Following the second meeting of the Portland Central City Task Force, the governor announced the need for urgent action. That includes an initiative with Oregon State Police, as you mentioned. Troopers will ramp up efforts and coordinate with local agencies like Portland Police to increase staffing for drug enforcement in the Central City. The governor said they'll focus on going after the sellers, making it, quote, uncomfortable to sell or distribute drugs in this area, with more people watching, more enforcement, and more detective work.
So our goal right now is, what do we have in existing resources, existing staff, to do the job differently, to be more effective? Hence the whole idea of strategic work with the detective and research and the crime lab work that we can bring to the discussion with local law enforcement.
The governor said that there are some statutory changes that need to be made, and they are going to address those with lawmakers in the upcoming short session in February.
All right, Alma, related to this, we know the city has already passed an ordinance to ban drug use in public, but because of a quirk in Oregon's laws, they can't actually enforce that, not until state lawmakers step in, which of course raises the question here. As part of this effort, why doesn't the governor call a special session?
Well, David, I asked her specifically about that, and she said that's just not the right approach at this time. She says holding a special session just takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and they want to focus the efforts, instead of doing that, on making sure that they're drafting the legislation to get it ready for February. She even said that some of these ideas and concepts need to be in the pipeline now so they can be ready for the short session. I'll have more on this initiative coming up on KGW News at 11.
Yeah, Alma McCarty reporting downtown there. Thank you, Alma. Let's get to your headlines now, starting with the man accused of shooting and killing a Clark County Sheriff's Sergeant, now reportedly convicted of aggravated murder. That is according to the Columbian, which reports the 4-week trial in the death of Sergeant Jeremy Brown wrapped up this afternoon. Brown was killed in July of 2021 while doing surveillance on an alleged gun trafficking operation in East Vancouver. Prosecutors say Guillermo Rea Leon, who was a suspect in that scheme along with his brother and wife, snuck up on Brown from behind and shot him. Rea Leon is facing a mandatory minimum of life in prison and will be sentenced next week. His brother was convicted in August for second-degree murder for his role as the getaway driver. Target has announced it plans to close 9 of its stores across 4 states, including 3 locations in the Rose City. The reason? A rise in theft and organized retail crime. The Target stores at the downtown Galleria, Hollywood District, and Southeast Powell will all be closing by October 21st. That'll leave some 15 stores in the Portland area. It's worth noting data shows the 3 locations slated for closure don't necessarily have the highest crime rate. Our KGW investigative team looked into that and found out some of the other factors in this decision. That's coming up at 6:30 on The Story. State economists made it official today. Landlords in Oregon will not be able to raise rent by more than 10% in 2024, and they can only raise rent once in a 12-month period. This comes from the Office of Economic Analysis, which has to announce maximum annual rent increases each and every September. This was expected since Governor Kotek signed a bill earlier this year to cap rent hikes at 7% plus inflation, a hard cap there of 10%. Now, without the hard cap last year, inflation allowed rent increases to be as much as 14.6%. And state health officials have lifted an advisory for Willamette Cove in the St. John's neighborhood. That's been in place since late July because of toxic algae blooms. Earlier this month, OHA lifted advisories for the river from Ross Island through downtown Portland, though a health advisory remains in effect for the Ross Island Lagoon. Matt?
Thanks very much, David. I tell you what, we've got some wet weather on the way, and it's already been very wet. Take a look at Cannon Beach right now. Boy, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, this one's worth probably, 5,000, because it tells us what's on the way. It's 58 degrees. The wind's not too bad, 14 miles an hour, but it will be increasing overnight tonight, and the coast is going to be looking at gusts of 40 or 45 miles an hour. Look at Doppler radar. It's been showery today, but it hasn't really added up to a whole lot here in the valleys. Better batch of rain along the coast. There's been a couple of thunderstorms up around Mount St. Helens and Mount Adams. But look at the record rainfall that we had yesterday. McMinnville, an inch of rain, breaking a record that has stood since 1950. Hillsborough, nearly an inch of rain. The biggest record, perhaps the most impressive, even though it's not the highest amount, 7,200 in Salem. But the record it broke had stood since 1901, so a 122-year-old record fell in Salem yesterday. Now look at this, even more impressive, the 3-day rainfall totals from some of the mountainous areas around the region. Sheep Canyon up on Mount St. Helens, 4.5 inches of rain. Abernathy Mountain, that's north of the Columbia River in the Washington Coast Range, 3 1/3 inches of rain. Elkhorn Mountain is in Clark County. Bull Run, of course, nearly 2 inches of rain, and the Nehalem River out in the Oregon Coast Range, about 2.5 inches of rain. We're still a little bit below average in Portland with our rainfall, but boy, is that ever going to change. Overnight tonight, tomorrow, we get some heavy rain, showers Thursday, and finally a breather as we go into the weekend. David, I'll let you know how warm it'll be in a bit. Back to you.
Breaking records, and we're just getting started. Thank you, Matt. I want to get to a major development this evening at OHSU and a tentative deal with thousands of nurses, one that could avoid a strike. Daisy Caballero is live at OHSU with all of those details. Daisy.
Yeah, David, nurses are saying that this is a historic win for them. Not only will they be getting a pay raise and seeing better staffing ratios at work, they say that they will be able to provide better care for their patients. So here's what's in that contract that we're talking about here. The average base wage for nurses will increase 37%. It will now average $20.67 an hour, increase over 3 years. The contract includes language guaranteeing nurse-to-patient ratios and secure breaks for nurses during their shifts. Data from OHSU shows nurses have missed at least 95,000 legally required rest periods in the last 6 months. Safety is also top of mind. The new contract will require 24/7 metal detector screenings in emergency rooms.
Your nurses are going to be rested. They're going to be able to take the time off that they need to come to work ready and well and not ill, and prepared and well rested to actually take care of their patients. You'll see it because your nurses are going to be able to spend more time in your room with you.
OHSU wasn't available for an interview, but shared a statement saying this contract fosters a healthy and secure place for nurses to work and provide great patient care. They ended with saying, quote, "This is a huge accomplishment and we appreciate the time and effort of everyone involved, including the nearly 3,200 nurses who are at the heart of this contract." Now, nurses will start voting on this contract this Sunday, and if approved, will run all the way through June 30th of 2026. David?
Daisy Caballero there at OHSU. Thank you, Daisy. Speaking of negotiations, the union that represents more than 1,300 classified employees in Portland Public Schools has rejected a contract proposal from that district. Classified workers include library assistants, para-educators, and others. The contract offered by PPS would have boosted minimum pay to $20 an hour with incentives for some hard-to-fill jobs. They are now headed back to bargaining. Meanwhile, in negotiations with teachers, final offers went to a state mediator last Friday. If no deal is reached, teachers could strike as early as late October. And this just in the Hollywood writers' strike. It is officially over. Union members have just approved their new contract agreement. That means they will be back on the job as of 12:01 tonight, Wednesday morning. The late night talk shows are likely to be first to resume production. Well, back here in the Northwest, Portland transportation officials are trying to make their case to the city about a massive budget shortfall and the cuts to jobs and services that could soon follow if someone doesn't step in with more funding. China Green joins us live. China, we're talking about $32 million. What's on the line here?
Well, David, a lot, anywhere from jobs to potholes not being filled in to graffiti not being cleared. Portland will notice dramatic and visible reductions to the transportation services if these cuts are not prevented. But first, let's look at how we got here in the first place. So PBOT says, despite what many people think, most of their budget is not funded by taxpayer dollars. That is only 2%. The rest is from grants, gas taxes, and parking fees. But times are changing. Cars are more energy efficient, so gas taxes are on the decline. And more people work and shop from home, so parking media revenue is also down by a lot. And PBOT cannot go into debt because of unforeseen changes.
If you were a private individual, you may be able to take on some debt, right, and just go into the minus. But as a city agency, we are not allowed to. We have to balance our budget. And so we actually have to look out 5 to 10 years in advance, too, as part of that budgeting.
So what could be cut? Well, a lot of things. Most notable, pothole filling, subsidies for festivals, parades, and block parties, landslide and emergency repair work, snow plowing on secondary routes, and graffiti removal on traffic signals and street lights. So some solutions PBOT is proposing that could be implemented by City Council are higher parking rates, street fees, and street damage fees, among other tools. But we have a more in-depth look at this proposal on KGW.com. David?
I have a feeling we're going to be talking about all of this for quite a while. China Green reporting tonight. Thank you, China.